Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty, proudly serving Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties. Call 407-790-9957 or visit WeSellOrlando.net. Let's tell people about things we do know. Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you here on this, late July edition. This is not a summer session, but it is 2018 American Athletic Conference Media Days, which means that the summer is over, having literally just begun. And football season is upon us. Joining me, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy, like I mentioned. Eric is joining me from his hometown compound, if you will. Yeah. Brian Murphy is most definitely not, because he was in Newport, Rhode Island this week.
Nothing says capital of the football world than Rhode Island.
That football hotbed known as Rhode Island.
Well. Speaking of hotbeds, you missed the clam bake?
I did not. I missed the clam bake, Jeffrey. Yes. Oh. And I'm okay with that.
It was a flight issue, right?
Yes, actually, it was a flight issue. My flight got like 3 hours delayed, so I wouldn't have made it anyway. But I wasn't planning on going anyway, because I just wanted to get here and do my thing today and then leave. I didn't want to take all these Ubers all around town last night.
You didn't want the lobster and the clams and the whole thing.
They do. You know what? They do have an oyster bar here in the airport. I think after this podcast is over, I might go get some oysters. Yeah, it's airport oysters.
That's of all the bad ideas I've heard, that one might be the worst.
No,
airport oysters.
It's Rhode Island airport oysters, so I feel like it's still pretty decent. I'm gonna bet my life on it. Maybe literally.
Quite literally, in fact. All right. We're gonna talk about Media Day here. By the way, you can follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret and on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. Follow me at Jeff_Sharon. Follow Eric at Eric Lopez-Elo. Follow Brian at Spokes_Murphy, and you can also subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. All right, so let's get it underway. Brian, you are actually at the airport in Providence right now, getting ready to fly back home.
Yes.
2018 Media Days. Listen, like, we all like Media Days because we all get together. It's like, it's like the little party to start the season, and hey, everybody, let's all get together. Hey, haven't seen you since last Media Day and all that kind of, how's life back in Memphis or wherever. And there's very little news, like news that happens ever at a Media Day. But there was was there a little bit of news when Mike Aresco took the podium?
I feel like Mike Aresco came out today with guns blazing. Really, I mean, I don't know if it was news, but Mike Aresco got up there, and I don't know for how long. He's made his statement, but he made a very long statement about the conference and how it should be, obviously accepted on a power conference level. And here's why, with all their bowl game wins and their draft picks. But the language he used, and he was pretty fiery. I mean, he compared those who doubt the validity of the AAC as a power conference as those who doubted George Washington fighting the British in the Revolutionary War.
That is quite the comparison.
Serious.
Wow.
That is that's
what was on the lobster the night before?
That's muskets blazing for sure. Go on.
There was a Churchillian fire in the room at the Gurney's Sea Water Hotel or wherever this was. It was really pretty fiery, and he started off by mentioning Dr. Hitt and what he had done for the university. He also talked about how he congratulated UCF on their undefeated season and national championship, which they had a right to claim. He was very complimentary of UCF's national championship, and I just felt like this is a man who was sort of not screaming in so many words, but he was trying to tell everybody, like, look at what we are doing, like respect us, basically. Put some respect on it.
He has a point. In that he's absolutely sick and tired of the conference that he's in charge of being treated like a second-class citizen. And I think he's right. It is very clear. All right, there's a division between the so-called autonomous 5 conferences and the non-autonomous 5 conferences, but the American is right there in this, like right on the gray, cloudy area between the two of them, right? And I think that's the thing that he's trying to get across. And also, he's got a television contract that he's got to negotiate fairly soon. So, in that respect, I think he's absolutely correct that. In making that point.
Listen, this is all about the TV deal. This is all TV talk. This is trying to spin it so you're prepared. This is basically your pitch to get a big TV deal, because he knows this next TV contract is critical. It's critical to see where the American ends up. They want to get a good TV deal. You don't want to get left out here. You don't want to end up like other conferences that are, stuck on, second or third tiers, and you have to find like random channels to find your product. So I think this is all basically he's preparing to, this is what we bring to the table, pay us the money. Because here's the thing, you can talk about on the field all you want. The question is, how much are you getting from television? If you get a good deal from the television deal, then you're going to get what you want and rewarded for it. We've talked about this on this podcast plenty of times, on how a Big Ten network and the SEC network and the packages that they provides them with the platform to really get the exposure they get, and as a result get the resources and money they get to be good at everything. So I really don't care what he has to say. It's great. It's funny because he was kind of resistant on this topic at the beginning of all this.
Right.
Yeah.
And now he's jumping in, and I think it's because we're closer to trying to make a TV deal, and I think he knows there's pressure that he's in some ways will be defined based on the TV deal he gets.
Much, by the way, to the chagrin of UCF fans, that he was previously lukewarm on the national championship claim thing.
Are we good with him now? Are we going to be good with him now because he's jumped on board?
Well, I was always good with him because I think that he's done, all things considered, for the conference as a whole. He has played his series of hands perfectly to this point. There were a lot of UCF fans, I think, out there that weren't, and even today I saw some reaction out there saying, a little too late for me. I'm like, shut up. I think he's right to actually jump on board and say, hey, look, UCF has the right to claim that. We believe it. We back them up, and I think we as a league should back them up because that's also, by the way, good for the league. So I'm on board with that. Did he give any updates on the TV situation, Brian? Or
no?
Okay,
no. And I know he's been in recent podcasts talking about that. It is his number one priority. We all know that. He has said it, but there is no update, like any breaking news there.
Right. So he's gonna get back into the bunker and try and figure that out from there. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was reading this one quote just from him.
Go for it.
I talked about how how he's talking about, like, this feels like a war. And he goes, if I said back in 2013 that in 5 years we would clearly be knocking on the door of the autonomy group, you would have, to put it politely, doubted me. But mark my words, we will eventually get there. We will never settle for second-class status. We will never accept a silly non-power designation. We will continue to fight. We will never surrender to the naysayers who will always be with us. I swear to God, it almost sounds like he was going to say, we will fight them on the land.
We shall fight in the fields. We shall fight them on the beaches.
You're in Rhode Island. You're in Rhode Island. You get spirited there.
Yeah.
I will say this. He's right about this. When this league started 5 years, and that's the thing people forget. This league's 5 years old. And I think that's one of the reasons why it doesn't get maybe the respect, is it doesn't have tradition, really. I mean, it's not the SEC or the Big Ten. I mean, in college football in particular, tradition means a lot. And people don't like to hear that, but that's reality. And so he's done a heck of a job with this league. And I laugh when people criticize him about it, because a lot of people thought this was a joke when this first started. A lot of people are like, oh, well, is this going to be like Conference USA, or is this going to be this? And, it turns out he is definitely, this league has exceeded people's expectations. I think he should get credit for that and for the vision. Adding a Navy, for example, has helped the football brand and the football program. They're a part of the TV package. Adding Wichita State on the basketball side had big-time help to them last year. He's done some things that was not a unanimous decision, and yet it's worked out. So I do agree with him in that comment, and that people have doubted him, and he's hit the ball out of the park more times than not.
We shall never surrender. All right. All right, let's move on from Mike Aresco. Eric, I think you're right. If you're looking for if your primary objective on your resume as the commissioner of a conference is to advocate for your conference, he's done that perfectly well. So from scratch. Yeah, it's not like a John Swafford or Sankey who took over a brand. Like the SEC. I mean, with all due respect to Greg Sankey, that kind of runs his own ship. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's it's an easy sell. Same thing. I mean, Mike Aresco had to sell something from scratch. Yeah, and he's done a good job of that. He deserves credit. I'm confident he's going to get a good TV deal. Hopefully for all sports, not just the football. I know people focus on the football, but as we've discussed, a big-time TV deal can help all your programs and help the league in full. But that's all I got to say. So let's talk about UCF. Josh Heupel was there. Obviously, Mackenzie Milton was there, as was the Heisman Trophy. No coincidence. Pat Jasinski, a couple other players were there. I want to talk about Josh Heupel. I'm sure, obviously, there were questions about, hey, here you are coming in, kind of taking the wheel from somebody else who left pretty much on top. What are you going to do? So how was Josh Heupel in his first media day as UCF's head coach?
Yeah, pretty much as we expected. He was very complimentary of just the situation he's in, that he's come into. I mean, I think he understands that he's fortunate to be around with so many returning players of a great team. He understands it. He really put it more on his players than saying anything about him. And he just says that all he's trying to do is, and these are all cliches, but, win one game at a time and take week by week. And, he didn't say anything too newsworthy. He did reiterate something he said last week or a couple days ago, that Trey Neal, they had known since June that safety Trey Neal was going to transfer out of the program. He had stopped practicing with the team. And he mentioned right off the bat, he mentioned Richie Grant, sort of unsolicited. So, we already knew Richie was going to play a big role in this defense, but certainly they have high expectations for him.
The players themselves, I mean, they call this the car wash, right? Mm-hmm. The players going through the car wash, I mean, they're all going to say the same sort of cliches. Was there any sort of interesting non-cliche stuff that came up?
I think the one thing that kind of stuck out to me was from Pat Jasinski. I asked him about defense, because I think the one question that people have about this team is, how did they respond after losing Mike Hughes and Shaquem Griffin? And they really lost impactful players at all three levels of the defense. Everybody knows how good the offense is. I think the main question is, can they get enough stops? And I think he said, if anybody wants to think of us, or if anybody wants to underrate us, that's on them. That's their problem. So I think that was, kind of interesting. I think they know that people sort of doubt them and look at this offense that they need to put up 40 points every game because their defense maybe can't get enough stops.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be talked about a lot, and we'll see how they respond. Certainly, they think they're going to be great, and of course they should say that. But we'll see. But you could sense a slight tinge of defiance.
Well, I think they have reason to be defiant about that because this is the stat that everyone forgets last year. Eric, you know exactly where I'm going with this, right? UCF played games in 11 consecutive weeks last year. After the storm, they played football 11 straight weeks, ending with the conference championship. By the end of that season, when they were playing their best, football or their best opponents, they were completely gassed.
Yeah, you're right. And then if you look at this year's schedule, you've got sort of the mini bye at the very start with the Thursday opener, followed by the Saturday second game, and then you have a bye, but that bye is followed by a Thursday game and then a Saturday game after that. So they have a bye and then kind of another 10 days after the next game. So there are a lot of periods in the schedule which this team is going to get some rest, weather permitting.
Yeah, I mean that's weather. I can't believe we have to say that now, but it's true. When you think about it, like this is where we're at. We've had a couple of pretty active hurricane seasons in a row. So
yeah, that's what we want to hear. There you go.
Yeah, well, I know, but it's the truth, man. I mean, that's what's happening.
You go watch. You and Murph can go watch Jim Cantori and let me know.
Oh, my boy.
As long as he's not parked in front of my house, I think we're okay. But anyway.
Murph, I'm curious, what was the chatter, and I don't know how much time, if any, you got to spend maybe even around the other teams or even other media people. What was the kind of the chatter when UCF got brought up there as far as, and by the way, for those that don't know, they were picked to win as the preseason favorite to win the division and win the league. So it's not like they're anybody's disrespect. I mean, they're the favorite. They're going to be the overwhelming favorite going into the season. It's a little different than last year. But, well, any did you pick up on any chatter, either one way or the other, or anything stood out as far as either talking to other media people, chalking, or maybe from other teams?
I think a lot of the coaches here are, although they have to face UCF, they like having UCF around because it raises the profile of the entire league. Scotty Montgomery, the coach at East Carolina, was asked a question about Mackenzie Milton, and was asked about, do you think the Heisman campaign will put pressure on him? They asked to the coach of the ECU, and he goes, that kid will not wilt under the pressure. And they really praised Milton a lot. You heard that a few times from other coaches. I actually asked Mike Norvell, the coach at Memphis, whether his team will actually carry last year's conference championship loss and use it as motivation. He said that they sort of moved on from that. Unfortunately, I wanted to ask that question to the Memphis players. I didn't get a chance to do that. But overall, people like it. I mean, it's better when you have a team that, they're great and they're tough to beat. So for the sake of your own program, it's difficult to get wins against them, but they're booing this entire conference. I mean, they're holding it up right now and they put it on a national stage last year. So, I think they certainly like having UCF around, and there was a lot of compliments from Milton.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty. Sam Unger and his team proudly serve Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties, specializing in buying, selling, and new construction. Sam is a proud UCF graduate, class of 2006, and he's such a dedicated Knight fan that right now, if you work with him as your realtor, he will donate a portion of his commission to the UCF Football Excellence Fund in your name. So if you're ready to buy a new home or sell your current home, upgrade or downsize, Sam and his team have you covered so you can find the right home at the right price in the right location. So give them a call right now at 407-790-9957. Again, that's 407-790-9957. Or visit on the web at WeSellOrlando.net. Again, that's WeSellOrlando.net. You can also reach them on Facebook at facebook.com/WeSellOrlando. Get in touch with the Unger Real Estate Group today and make finding your dream home a reality.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Who, out of the opponents that you saw, that you spoke to around the American, I mean, you can't really say anything based on these guys just walking around in suits and yelling cliches at you, but which group of guys did you think, like, yeah, they might be interesting to follow this year?
It's probably going to be Memphis, as long as Memphis can find a quarterback, which replacing Riley Ferguson. Norvell said that's going to go into August. They'll figure, that this is not something they're going to, decide quickly. But that seems to be, and if you look at how the media voted, not that it matters a whole lot, but the media kind of expects there to be a championship game rematch this year between UCF and Memphis. And if Memphis can find that quarterback, they're really dangerous.
That was the preseason poll, right?
So Memphis was picked to win the West. I think they got 23 out of 30 votes. And then for the conference championship, UCF got 19 out of 30, and Memphis got 7, which was second most. So,
yeah, well, it's going to be interesting.
Well, Murph, I'm curious. What is the perception on the East side? I remember a year ago at Media Day, everybody was like, "Well, USF's the overwhelming favorite. Who's going to compete with USF on the eastern side? Their schedule is made up for them." Well, it turns out it was UCF. Nobody saw that coming, at least not to that degree. Do we have that team? Because I feel like the roles are reversed a little bit now, that UCF's kind of in the boat where USF was last year. They have all these returning players, including the best quarterback in the league, like Flowers was going into the season. This year it's McKenzie. They have a new head coach like USF did. Is there any inkling to it? Maybe it doesn't have to be in the east side. Is there a team that people are talking up and saying, this team could be the UCF of 2018 and maybe surprise and challenge for the conference title in either division? I
mean, there's a lot. If you want to talk about a team that could go places because of just one guy, I mean, Ed Oliver does a lot. And, they talked about Ed Oliver maybe playing some offense this year, the defensive tackle at Houston, because he's their best player, and they might actually try to get the ball in his hands in some way. I think that'd be fun to watch. USF got the other 5 votes out of the East for the preseason media poll. UCF got 25 of the 30 votes to win the East. USF got the other 5. I talked to a couple of USF people who were actually surprised that the Bulls got that many. I don't know if anybody really believes that anybody can compete with UCF in this Eastern Division, and that's sort of dangerous. I mean, if you're UCF, you can't look. I'm sure they won't look at it, but you can't know that, because then you start resting on your laurels and thinking how great you are. But out of the East Division, I don't think there's anybody who thinks there's any competition. And then out of the West, yes, Memphis is the best team, but I think Houston is the most intriguing. Because they may have the number 1 pick in the entire draft.
Yeah, Ed Oliver's.
That's interesting. And USF's got to find a quarterback, and they just had the kid Dean, their quarterback Keen, suspended at the beginning of the season, and that probably hurts him a little bit as well, right? Was there some chatter about the quarterback position at USF?
There might have been. I missed it. The USF the coaches roundtable. I didn't see that. So I don't know. Is it USF or is it South Florida?
Oh, I know. I got to apologize. I'm sorry, Charlie Strong. I'm sorry. To avoid the confusion, you want to be referenced now as South Florida, because apparently people...
Because, that's not confusing enough as it is.
No. So I apologize. I will now call you South Florida per your request on your jersey. I apologize. I am making that correction right now.
Just do yourself a favor, everybody. If you go to South Florida, don't go looking for USF.
Yeah, exactly. what's the tone? You talk to the UCF players. Have they finally put? What's their mood as far as have they put last year behind them? Do they don't want to talk about last year? Is it about this year? What? Because obviously people have been talking about, in the offseason, that's all they've been talking about. It's about the championship play, about the undefeated. Well, this is a new year now. That's it. And with that comes a target, and that record does not translate to this year. So what is the players saying about that?
Yeah, and even we heard that in spring that they were not talking. They were no longer going to talk about, their undefeated season, because even in spring ball, it was already done. I asked them today, one of the questions I posted to the players was, every year the players want to get better. Every team says they want to get better. Well, how do you get better than undefeated? And, to a man, really, they said, well, it's not about the record. It's about, just being better yourself, getting better as a player. Wyatt Miller put on some weight because he wanted to be, more sturdy, more bulky, a little more muscular this year. Titus Davis has been working hard to work into Randy Shannon's defense. And so I think their aspect of last year is gone. And I think they really want to get better individually. And if they do that and stay healthy, which is no small feat, then I think this team is going to reach its goals, which are still very, very, very lofty.
What's the most popular question that was asked of either a UCF player or maybe even the entire league the whole day that you saw that every time you were somewhere, that question kept popping up and you're like, wow, they really brought that question up again. What, has there been a theme? Somebody had a theme as a big popular question. Like I know I've been watching the Big Ten media days. Everybody's been asking about the playoff system to coaches, the red shirts and all that stuff. What's been a common topic that's been brought up in Rhode Island since you've been there?
Well, I think league-wide, I think that's a good point. There was a lot of questions posed to each coach was about the playoff. Should they expand the playoff? Should it go to 8 teams? Should it go to 16 teams? They asked Josh Heupel that question, and he didn't actually give a firm answer. Like, well, I don't know if it's 8 or 16, but Heupel did say that the winner of this league deserves to be in that championship. It deserves to be in that playoff. Now, if that means they have to expand to 8, so be it. But he believes that the winner of this league should be in the playoff. And then otherwise, I think the most player-focused or player-centric story was Mackenzie Milton's Heisman campaign. Look, UCF, every team brings their media guides and their notes and whatever. So UCF brought theirs, but they also brought Hawaiian leis that every media member could take home if they want, with the hashtag Heisman symbol on it.
Oh yes,
and that they are marketing it to the hilt. Also, the Heisman Trophy was in attendance at this event, so took some pictures of that. And that was really the most player-centric story is Mackenzie Milton dealing with the spotlight and having the Heisman campaign upon him. I asked him more about just how the reception he's getting back at home. Because Hawaii is such a big part of him and the campaign. He talked a lot about his friendship with the Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. I believe I got that almost correct.
Pretty good.
But that's about it. I mean, Milton's your player that everybody was talking about, and then league-wide, everyone's talking about should they expand the playoff. I actually asked Titus Davis that question. Titus Davis really thought about it for a long time, and then I said, do you think they should keep the playoff at 4 teams? And he goes, yeah, I like 4. I really like 4. I don't think UCF fans like 4, but I certainly understand where Titus is coming from.
Somebody needs to get to him and tell him what's up about that. Come on, man.
Look, it's fascinating. I think we're finally getting good dialogue, and I give the Big Ten media credit, and I guess, you credit, Murph, and whoever is out there at Rhode Island. I think we're finally asking the proper questions, and that is, what's your thoughts on the playoff and your thoughts on maybe expanding instead of, well, who's the champ, who's this or that. There's a lot of flaws with the playoff system. The Big Ten champion, by the way, as I've learned in the Big Ten media days, has not made the playoff in 3 of the 4 years. This is not a hey, this is a UCF problem or a Group of 5 problem. It's a sports problem. And I think when we start actually having adult conversations about this and people start having dialogue, then we'll actually have something change. And I do think we will have 8 teams probably 10 years from now.
Well, I think the other thing too is, you're starting to see this pick up outside of the non-P5 leagues. Scott Frost threw his weight behind an 18 playoff. I think Harbaugh did too. Yeah, which he's always been, but for him to say that, as part of the Big Ten, I think is noteworthy. I think Harbaugh came out in favor of it too. So I think it's starting to become more or less common knowledge now that it's going to happen.
Well, part of the problem is, and the Big Ten has been an example of this, and they brought it up when I watched their coverage. 2 years ago, people forget this. Ohio, people making a big deal about Alabama getting in, even though they didn't win their division or their conference. Ohio State got in 2 years ago without winning their conference and their division, and they got in at the expense of the Big Ten champion, Penn State, because, quote, they had a second loss in their schedule in the non-conference. So they've had that issue. Last year, Ohio State didn't get in, even though the Big Ten, in my opinion, was the best football league last year by far, top to bottom, better than anybody in the conference. So I think people realize that you have great teams, and it's okay that two of the best teams can be in the league. I think to solve this is you get to 8. And I think I would prefer to be top 5, the power, quote unquote, and I hate the terms. I don't know why, and that's part of the problem. We always have power. Like, who cares? The top 5 conference champions, the group of 5 champion, and 2 wild cards. I do think the probably compromise is what Scott Frost said, which is the 5 conference champions and 3 at larges, because the power conferences will probably not give in to the group of 5 automatically getting a bid because they don't want to share the money and all that, yada, 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 which is, again, goes back to the American Conference needs to have a strong TV deal so they can put themselves in the table. We could talk all about the on-the-field stuff, but at the end of the day, that's where the power struggle comes. So I think we're going to get 8. I think we're going to wait to this TV contract, but I think it's going to take the Big Ten to change this, not because a team went undefeated and they think they should be in. Yeah. Because I think if we've seen anything from this committee beyond last year, people forget this, Florida State in 2014 was undefeated, and they were a 3 seed. They barely got into the tournament. So it's not like, they're not. It's not like you have to be undefeated and you're automatically in. There's more to it. It's too subjective, and that's the big problem that, as James Franklin brought up at Penn State.
Yeah, and I would bring up too, like the roundtable that Josh Heupel was on also had Sonny Dykes at SMU. He was very direct in saying he thought 8 was best. I believe Jeff Collins, the head coach at Temple, said 8 as well. I mean, 8 makes so much sense, right? Just from a logistical standpoint of, like, you get every Power 5 conference championship champion in there. You get, the best of the non-power, whatever you want to call it, and then 2 at-larges, which are deserving. I mean, but again, that's not going to change probably until the current contract runs out, which is, 2024?
Mid-2020s, yeah 2024.
Yeah. I was paying attention to Josh Heupel. I'm sorry, Eric. I didn't pay terribly close attention to everybody else. I let you down there. I really do apologize.
That's okay. I'll edit that part out. We got to wrap up. We got to wrap anyway. So, all right. So, as we wrap, I mean, here we are on a Tuesday. We're recording this on a Tuesday. As you're about to hop on a plane, get back down here. Brian, while the back of your seat is being kicked by some toddler, what do you plan on writing about this week?
So I'll have pieces coming out from what I saw today. A piece about like I talked about the defense being underrated, or people not wanting the defense to be seen as a blemish for this team. I'll talk about the comments from Aresco, a little bit about Milton. And some other things, and we'll just see there's a lot of stuff I could throw out. But I'll be putting things up today, Tuesday, and then throughout the week as well, just sort of peppering the site with little small things.
Cool. That's going to be fun, and it's going to be a blast to see that kind of stuff. All right. Real quick, as we wrap up, Brian, where can people reach out to you?
They can find me at the airport. They can find me @spokes_Murphy on Twitter.
Cool stuff. And Eric, where can people reach out to you?
Well, first of all, I just hope that Murph gets back to Florida quicker than he did from the Trop, though, when we had the Bannies Awards show.
Oh boy, yeah. Don't get stuck on some exit on the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to be 12th in line for takeoff.
Oh my goodness.
God. And this is
you
in
can
July.
follow me at Eric Lopez Elo, by the way, where we'll have I have content there going on, a variety of topics. We'll just leave it at that.
Cool. And I want to also send out a very special thank you to Michael Esposito. Espo writes on Twitter, who our buddy Sam Unger put us in touch. He actually helped us out as well with providing some live content as well from Media Day. So I wanted to thank Mike for that. Espo writes on Twitter. Folks, give him a follow. He does a great job keeping track of UCF elsewhere in the UCF media world. So thanks again. So as we wrap up here, again, Brian, safe travels getting home.
Thanks.
And Eric, I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Sounds good.
All right. You can follow both of those guys for all of our Media Day coverage spreading on throughout the week. And as we head toward football season, we got a lot of stuff coming up. Also, be on the lookout for more of our summer sessions here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Tiffany Roberts-Sahadak this week, the UCF women's soccer head coach. We're going to have that out a little bit later on this week, previewing the 2018 season for UCF women's soccer. And we're going to have, hopefully, men's soccer, volleyball, and a couple other things coming your way as well. Some alumni we've got on tap. I'm not going to give it away just yet because there are still some things in the works, but... and you know me, I don't like to divulge things before they're 100% in the bag. But yeah, that's we've got that all the way. We've got that stuff ready for you coming up. So keep an eye on blackandgoldbanneret.com, Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret, UCF_banneret on Twitter, and subscribe to our podcast if you don't already on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Google Play. For Eric Lopez and Brian Murphy, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you again later on with a few more summer sessions as we move headlong toward the 2018 season.